Hi, my name is Ms. Zaineb, and today we're going to be looking at how the. Hi, my name is Ms. Zaineb, and today we're going to be looking. I don't know. I don't know. Hi, my name is Ms. Zaineb, and today we're going to be exploring how websites appear on our screen. How is data transmitted all around the world to our very own laptop? It seems like this happens so quickly when we press enter on our keyboards, but there's actually quite a few steps in between that happen super fast. So, what exactly is data? What is exactly traveling through all those cables? Well, if you remember from past videos, I've said that data is just pulses of light that are traveling through the cables. But what do these pulses of light form? Well, they form things that we use in everyday life. They form images, sound, like as in sound files, so for songs, videos, and even text. So even when we're messaging through WhatsApp, this is data. But computers don't understand sound as humans understand sound. Computers don't understand images in the same way that we view images. Computers can only talk in a certain language. So the language is binary. So this is the ones and zeros that we talked about in previous videos. When the ones and zeros are put into different types of context, they mean different things. So you can have different types of ones and zeros which can formulate a number, but then you can have ones and zeros that are placed in a certain way that can formulate a colour. So all of this data gets put together in a certain way to make it readable for us humans. But how exactly is it transmitted? How does data move from one place to another? How do websites appear on our laptop? So if we go through the first step of being able to get a website onto our laptop, the way that we understand it is obviously we just type in the URL. So we type in the address of the website into our address bar, and then we have our website. So it appears very, very, very quickly. It's almost hard to believe that there are so many steps involved to be able to get that information onto your laptop. Okay, so first things first, step one. The URL, so this is basically the website address that what we type in, that actually specifies the protocol. Now, a protocol is basically like a set of rules that the internet has to follow, and the internet has to follow these rules in order to be able to transmit communication. So the only parts that you need to understand at this point is the bit that comes in just before. So it's that bit that's HTTP. Now, this HTTP part comes in two forms. So you can either get it saying HTTP as you see there, or you can have it down as HTTPS. Now, the S means that the website is secure. So you might also see something like a padlock, and the padlock would appear next to the address bar to be able to show that this website is secure, and it can encrypt your information, it can protect like any type of sensitive data that you might have. So the sites that usually use this are like banking sites to be able to keep your banking details secure and any type of banking activity that you do, or shopping sites. So whenever you enter in your banking information, all of that is encrypted to ensure that your data is protected. Okay, so we've specified the protocol, and the next step what we need to do is, this is where the internet service provider gets involved. Now, your internet service provider, us cool people call it ISP. Now, ISP is basically any type of service that provides internet for you. So in Dubai, we have Etisalat, we have Do. In the UK, you're probably more used to BT, Virgin Media, which we also have here actually, and Sky. Now, your ISP plays a crucial role here. It needs to look up the domain name of the actual website that you're looking for. Okay, so let's have a look at this URL. So the URL part is the entire website address that you've written in. So for the example here, www.youtube.com. So this whole part we call the URL, or the Uniform Resource Locator. So exciting. Okay, so then we have the domain name. So the domain name itself is part of the URL. So in this instance here, the domain name would be YouTube. Okay, so your ISP needs to be able to look up the address of this domain name. Okay, so it works out what the domain name is from the URL that you type in, and then it needs to find out what its address is. So the address, what we call it, the Internet Protocol address. IP address is the shortened version of it, and this is probably something that you're more familiar with. So everything would have an IP address. So where does it try to find this address? Well, it uses the domain name, so they have that information from the URL. So it needs to find out where the address is from something called the domain name server, or for short, DNS. Okay, let's recap before we move any further. Okay, so at this point, we have the user typing in the URL. They type in, so this is the website address. They type in the website address in the address bar that happens at the top of the browser. Okay, so then the ISP, which is the Internet Service Provider, so remember this is Etisalat, BT, Virgin Media, they look up the domain name. So in our example, we said they look up the word YouTube because they found that in the URL. They look it up in the domain name server to get the IP address. Now imagine the domain name server as like a filing cabinet, and it has a list of all the domain names and the IP addresses. So it gets the IP address by trying to find that domain name in the domain name server. Okay, at this stage, if you feel a little bit lost, I would rewind just a little bit, try and go through it again and try to mind map it out so that you can try to follow. Okay, now we have the IP address. So we know the address, we know the place to get the information from, to get this website from. So what happens next is that your web browser sends a request to that IP address. So it's like sending them, imagine it's like sending them an email to request information. It's the same thing. So they're sending a request to the IP address or to the server. Now the picture on the right is what a server would look like. So the reason why I put that there, because you probably have already recognized it from like your tech room, your IT technician's room. Step 4. Okay, so the server then sends the data back to the user using their IP address, because obviously if they've sent the request, then you know which IP address has requested it. So then they send that information back. So the information that they're sending is the data. Now, when we're trying to get different websites, you might find with some websites that have a lot of information that they might take time to load. Or if you're an old person like me, then you know that the internet hasn't always been this fast, and it would take time to be able to retrieve the different items that are on the website. So let's look at a website itself. So the picture on the right would be a standard website, and there are different components that make up that website. So for example, you'll have a video there, you can have a chart, it might include some pictures as well. So all of these components will make up the website. Now, when you are requesting that data to be sent to you, it won't come all in one part. So you won't get the video come in one bit, or the graph come in one bit, or the picture will come in one bit. It actually gets separated into different packets. So the video gets sent in small parts, and it won't load up until it's received everything and put everything in the right order, organized it for the web browser to be able to display on the screen. Okay, so hopefully you're not too confused. I'm going to try and break it down now. So let's say we have this lovely image here on the right. So the next thing what your computer is going to do, or what the server is going to do, it splits it up. So it's going to split up the image, and it will split it up into packets of data so that it's not one whole picture being sent at the same time. Now, it doesn't really get split up in this way that I'm showing you, but I'm just trying to help you to visualize the concept. Okay, so we have the server, and the server wants to send information to the user. So it wants to send this picture in particular, and this picture is separated into different packets to get to its user. So each part would be one of those packets. And then those packets, when they get sent, they actually get sent along those different cables that we talked about in previous videos, and they get sent in different directions. If you think really carefully about what this would look like, if you have packets of data and they're going one after the other, you are not going to be having them arriving at the same time. You'll have to wait till each of those packets then arrive. Now, if you decide to split the packets up and to go in different directions with the aim of trying to get to its destination as quickly as possible, then you're most likely going to get all the packets in together at a much faster rate rather than firing them off one by one. So let's have a look at this example. So let's say, just for argument's sake, we have 4 packets of data. Now these 4 different packets, they hold part of the image, and those 4 packets are going to take a different route to be able to get to their end goal. So they're leaving the server and we're trying to get to the user. So it will take all of them will take different routes to try and get there at the same time. Now, once it gets to the user's computer, you have to remember that it's not going to come in the same order. So like 4 might get there just a little bit before the third one, before the first one, before the second one. So they might arrive in this order. So then what needs to happen is that the packets need to then be placed in the correct order. So once it does that, and then it's able to organize the data and then be able to present the content in what it's used for, whether that be a video, whether that be a sound file, whether that be an image. The web browser has to actually translate that to make it viewable for the user. Okay, so let's go back to our timeline. So the user types in the URL, the ISP looks up the domain name, which is found in the URL. It looks it up in the DNS, which is the domain name server, to get the IP address. Okay, so remember our end goal is to be able to have the website or the web page appear on the user's laptop. So the browser sends a request to the server. So this is your web browser. It will send a request to the server because we've already found the IP address from the domain name. So the browser will send a request to the server to say, can I have this web page, please? And then the server sends the data back to the user in packets of data. Now remember that this packet can be, let's say it's 1,000 bytes, and it might take a part of an image. So these packets will be able to travel through different routes to be able to get to the user's computer as quickly as possible. Now, if any of those routes are damaged, then that would mean that this packet of data would then just take a different route instead. Now, imagine if all of them are going down one route and then that wire is then damaged, then that's going to cause a massive delay. So that's another huge benefit to the packets all taking different routes to be able to get there. Okay, so that's the full timeline of how a website appears on your screen.
Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a clearer idea of how the internet works and how data moves around the world. Don't forget to subscribe.